Everybody online, can you hear me? Somebody give me a thumbs up. Anybody?
Yes, I can hear you.
Excellent. All right, let me close the chat, maximize my window. So we don't have an owl in the room yet. Kit's stuck in traffic, so we're going to go ahead and get started.
That's
And
great.
then
Thank you.
as we get the owl set up, then you guys will be able to see everybody in the room. But I'm projecting on the screen here too. So let me
Thank you.
share.
Donna, it looks like you're the host. Could you hit record for us so we can post it?
Magali, can you see my slides?
Yep,
Yes.
they're not in presentation mode, yes.
No,
but
there we go. How about now?
Mm, not
nope.
quite.
Screen sharing. Okay, it's showing presentation mode here. Is it?
Nope, we're
Has,
stuck on the
has all
back
your
end.
slides on the side.
No, of course not. All right, what if I go to the next slide? Can you guys at least see the winter survival tips?
Nope.
It
Nope.
hasn't moved.
Of course not. Why would
Yeah,
that be so
exit
easy?
sharing and start sharing again with a different
Yeah.
screen.
Says I am screen sharing. Can you see winter survival colony tips yet?
No.
Nope.
Stop
Is it
sharing.
possible it's screen sharing the wrong screen?
It most
I don't think
definitely is.
so. Hold on. Share. We'll try this. Share. Any luck?
Aha, yep, that's all good now.
Whoop, whoop. All right, so we're going to start off with winter survival tips and talk a little bit about fall preparation. So first off, you want to make sure that your mite counts are low. And if you haven't done anything about testing for mites, now is a really good time to do that. It's probably too late, but it's better than not doing anything. And my favorite treatment in the fall is Apigard because my bees are out robbing everybody else's bees that are dying, and they're bringing back the mites that they're dying from. And so Apigard's a good choice for right now. Strong colony populations are super important. And if you can cover them in honey on the sides and along the top, that's your best bet. And then if you have weak colonies, go ahead and combine those now. And now it's frozen on my screen. Here we go. It takes about 70 pounds of honey for the bees to survive over the winter. So if you think about it, if you have medium frames, it's about 4 frames each, 4 pounds per frame. If you have deep frames, that's about 10 pounds per frame. And if you have honey arches and you do this and guesstimate, all right, well, that's like a third of a deep frame, so maybe 3 pounds. And just make sure that you have enough. If you don't, then you'll need to make sure and get them some extra food, which we'll talk about. And as we get closer to our fall storms, it does get windy, remember, so use a big rock or pavers on top of each of your colonies. If you want to use straps, you can do that too. I found that rocks are easier. And then I've got some pictures later, but installing an entrance reducer, or right now I have robbing screens on several of my colonies that are getting harassed by yellow jackets and other colonies. So if you have a weaker colony that you don't want to combine yet, the stronger colonies or your neighbors' stronger colonies will come and rob them out. So a robbing screen's a really good idea at this time of year. And then if you live out in the country, a mouse guard's a good idea. Now, switching to dry sugar, now is about the time to do that because the nights are getting down around 50 degrees and the syrup gets super cold, so they won't eat it anymore. And you'll find that you'll put syrup on and they just won't eat it. So switching to dry sugar If you're still trying to feed 2 to 1, it is 2 parts sugar to 1 part water. The easiest way I've found to make that happen is to heat the water first and then add the sugar after. You can mix it and work really hard and use a drill and stir it really fast. It's a pain. I've been beaten up online when I tell people that I heat my water first and then add the sugar. They're like, you don't have to do that. I'm like, I know, but it's easier. And the ivy is starting to bloom in my neighborhood anyway. I know it's little microclimates are different, but the ivy honey is starting to bloom. So if you, for some reason, still have your honey supers on, I'd get them off right away because you don't want to add ivy honey to your supers. We're gonna have questions at the end, Deborah. Is that okay? All right, and so now's the time too to think about feeding shims for those people that are here at the Grant Visitors Center. I do have some examples of what these look like in the room, so you guys can take a look if you're interested. Feeding shims and moisture quilts are super important, in my humble opinion. In this climate, especially those shavings in the moisture quilts. I like to add a feeding shim, as you'll see in the picture. I add a newspaper right over the top of the frames and just pour dry sugar on top. It's called Mountain Camp. You can also use fondant patties. Hive Alive has some good fondant patties. Brad's sitting right next to me, so giving him the honorable mention there. And the moisture quilts, I just made mine, or you can make them out of a shallow. You can make them or pick them up from Man Lake or any of the manufacturers, and just use the cheapest rabbit shavings you can get. All right, and then I always get this question to insulate or not. Personally, I leave my lids insulated all the time. They have a 1-inch Pink Panther insulation. I found that if I use styrofoam, that the bees distribute the styrofoam throughout my neighborhood. And so I switched to Pink Panther. Dawn suggested that last year, and they don't seem to eat that as much as they do on the styrofoam. But I do leave it in all year long. And you'll notice in the top right-hand corner, my hives have a lot of snow on top. That was Valentine's Day a few years ago. That insulated top really makes the snow stick on the top, and then that's an additional insulator. There's no need to wrap colonies here if you let them propolize the seams. If you've got boxes that have hive tool marks and chisel marks in them, then sometimes they don't get the gaps filled in. So you can wrap it with painter's tape if you want. It's kind of a pain in the neck if your hives are close together, but I did it 1 year and then I didn't do it after that. And then you do want to slide, if you're using screen bottom boards, it's a good idea to slide the sticky board in and leave it in for the winter. There's lots of reasons to do that, which we'll talk about next month, but those sticky boards are important to keep them dry. And then after the first freeze is when I switch from my robbing screens, usually to my entrance reducers. That way the yellow jackets are done. And then I took a couple pictures today to look at some different hive configurations that I have going on. My colonies in my backyard have the 3 on the left-hand side still have top feeders on. And then this one on the right-hand side, this is my snarky colony. And they had supers on. They're mad at me because I took the supers off last weekend. But they have already, I put my feeding shim on. And right now I have Apigard in that feeding shim. The others have Apigard too in the shims that are just smaller that you see there underneath the feeders. But this way they've got at least a month to glue that feeding shim down so that it doesn't get leaks. And then if you're running mediums instead of deeps, you should be reducing down to either 2 or 3 mediums by now. And you can cram a lot of bees in there. They like to be tightly packed together. So lots of bees in here is fine right now, and their population is going down. Anyway, this colony with all the cool paint on it, I have a deep covered by a medium. They didn't have much honey in there, and I had an extra medium with a lot of honey. So I put that on top. And then on top of each of those, you'll see the feeding shims here too. Here's what they should look like by wintertime. Wintertime meaning like the end of October, first part of November. I've got my telescoping lid with Pink Panther 1-inch insulation in there. I've got the moisture quilt full of rabbit shavings. I use my feeding shims that do have an upper entrance. There's two schools of thought now on upper entrance or not. If you have your entrance all the way on the bottom like this, in the winter, the carpet of bees gets too thick and they can't go out to go to the bathroom. So I have the upper entrance in my feeding shim so they can do cleansing flights. But the downside of that is then it does vent air out. The other good side of that is it helps wick the moisture off to the side by creating a chimney effect. So like I said, there's two schools of thought on that. But I do use the shims with the holes in them. And then you can put your candy boards, fondant, or that mountain camp sugar in there for just in case. Follower boards are boards on the side that are just fake boards. You can make your hive bodies from 10 frame colonies into 8 frame colonies by using follower boards on the outside. It makes them a little bit lighter, helps with the air circulation. And then you, like I said, you want to reduce down to either these 2 deeps or 3 mediums, at least. A lot of people will. Oh, Peter just turned us off.
No. Are you okay?
Yeah,
You
can
should
you,
still be okay.
Margaret, you can still hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Nope, now they just disconnected me too.
We still hear you, but we.
Screen share has been stopped. Hold
yeah,
on.
We lost the screen here.
We all sat on. Sorry.
Good stuff. Absolutely.
Somebody give me a thumbs up when you can see that online again.
You're back.
All right. So I'll wait till they get the screen back up here to shift off of this one. But so by moving from the extra room down to as small a space as you can, even if you reduce down to 1 deep, and the bees are full in that 1 deep, it's better to leave the 1 deep full of bees and honey as opposed to having a half a colony full of bees and having those 2 deep. So if the bees don't fill the 2 boxes right now, go ahead and take the extra box off and store it. You guys about ready?
Can you switch the screen that you're sharing?
Can I switch? Well, it's sharing on, I have it already set up, so it's sharing on both. You just have to wait. That takes a little while to warm up. It's on, Peter.
It's on, it's on.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Yeah, it takes a little while to warm up.
I just felt like it was being excessive.
All right,
Yeah.
Deborah, you had a question while we're waiting for them. Do you want to?
Yeah, it's not clear. So if you have 70 pounds of honey, you also feed that function in?
Yeah, so the question in the room is, if I have 70 pounds of honey on my colonies, do I add sugar as well? And I have just taken to doing that, yes. I'll fill the top shim up with about 5 or 6 pounds of white sugar. And then if they don't eat it, by the time the spring comes around and it gets warm, then I just take all that off and then I dump it in a bucket and I make syrup out of it. So I figure it's better to have extra than not enough.
Wicked.
Yeah, and Brad said it also helps with the moisture wicking because the sugar absorbs all that moisture. So a lot of it, the sugar takes up the moisture instead of it going up into the moisture board.
Oh, that's great. Brown sugar and vitamin. And I was wondering, would it make sense to add like half of a pollen patty?
So the question is, should I add a half a pollen patty? And there was a mention of using raw sugar. So raw sugar is not recommended because it has too much fiber in it. And they have to go out to go to the bathroom, so it can give them dysentery in the winter. So it's better just to use the cheapest white sugar you can get. And then if you do add a pollen patty, I'd recommend using a winter pollen patty because it has about 5% pollen, 5% protein instead of the higher 35 or 40% protein of the summer patties. If you want to add summer patties, wait until the end of February to do that. Any questions online? Nope. All right, we'll move on then. I'm almost done. A word about saving your wax. I know a lot of people lost their wax this spring to the dreadful moth. And moth larva gets in your wax and makes a terrible mess and ruins it all. So if you're stacking your boxes, especially now because the moths are still going crazy, make sure that you're using Paramoth in each of your stacks. You can buy it at any bee supply place. Don't use mothballs. You won't be able to ever use your equipment again. Seriously, Paramoth is the way to go, and then it'll save your wax. And since it's still warm, it does vapor off pretty quickly. So I check once a month and replace it if it's gone or getting low.
How do you apply it?
What?
How do you apply it?
Oh, a question here is, how do you apply the Paramoth? I just use the paper plate on the top. It's just crystals. And so the instructions on the bottle will tell you how much. It'll tell you how much. Echo. Here's the mute.
Now I think.
Test. No. I know.
Okay, so John, you're the host.
Look.
There we go. Now it's working? Margaret, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, now we're back in business. Okay. The comedy routine is over. We're on to questions. Yes.
Do you have a super that isn't like fully capped?
So the question in the room is, what do I do with a super that isn't fully capped? Great question. I just pulled a whole bunch of those the other day. Brad probably did too.
Yeah.
So what I do is I take my frame that's not capped and I turn it sideways like this on top of, and I hold it over my frames and I shake down really hard. And if droplets fall out, I leave that for the bees. If nothing falls out and lands on the frames, it's dry enough and you can extract it. Now, if you've got honey on both sides, make sure and do that with both sides. And then if you're doing that, a refractometer is a great investment so that you make sure that your honey doesn't ferment.
If you happen to have a dehumidifier, you can also put those uncapped frames, just the box, you can put it in like a closet with the dehumidifier and just run the dehumidifier on constant. And that will actually dehydrate the honey down to a level, even if it's wet, really wet, it will dehydrate it down to a level where you can actually harvest and bottle it. Other option, if you have a dehumidifier.
Is the honey any good? I was feeding syrup all season.
So the question here is, what if I was feeding honey or feeding syrup all summer? Is the honey good? Yes, it's very tasty. It's a light flavored honey. You just can't sell it because it's adulterated honey. And I often wonder about that, honestly, because I've got I've got nucleus colonies and I've got big colonies with supers on it. And my neighbors have colonies that they're feeding. And I would be willing to bet that everybody's honey has a little bit of syrup in it because they go and rob it from someplace else. Hummingbird feeders and yeah. But no, if you've fed all summer, don't worry about it. Just don't sell it.
It's the word.
Yeah.
I call it beekeeper reserve.
Beekeeper reserve. I love it. What other questions? Let's see. There's some in the chat. What is the advantage of not using top entrances? That's a great question by Darius. So the advantage of not using an upper entrance is that it keeps the colony warmer because heat rises, right? And natural beehives will have an entrance, 3 or 4 inches up off the bottom. And then the heat rises and stays warmer in the tree. However, Langstroth colonies, the entrance gets blocked from the carpet of dead bees on the bottom. So if you're not going to have an upper entrance, you need to make sure and scoop that out so that the bees can go out to relieve themselves and take cleansing flights, because they'll go out even in the snow and do that.
What about the condensation?
And the question is, what about the condensation? Then moisture quilts, in my humble opinion, are the best idea to do. You can have a feeding shim without a hole, and then your moisture quilt and the sugar, if you mountain camp it, the sugar and the rabbit shavings will catch. And then it's easy to check too, because if you pull your lid up and you see that your shavings are all wet, you just scoop those out and then put dry shavings in.
Tilting.
Yeah, Brad mentioned you can tilt your hives forward a little bit too. They say like an inch higher in the back than the front will help the water run out, especially if you're using solid bottom boards. It's a good idea to go ahead and tilt them forward a little bit so that it runs out, but any water runs off the bottom. All right, I guess with that, I'll turn it over to Peter.
Okay, give me 1 second, we're gonna switch over to the owl. Maybe I'll just do it on your computer.
You're welcome to do that.
I'll just do it on your, I'll see if that's okay.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. This is the Puget Sound Beekeepers Association, as you know by now. I hope you've had a great beekeeping year. This meeting today is kind of a celebration of that. We're gonna, if you are here in person, hello people in person. My wife's making fun of me for looking at the camera and talking to the people on the camera. Everyone in person knows I'm here. I'm talking to you too. What was I totally got distracted. Yeah, we're gonna, if you're here in person, we're going to do a honey tasting. A number of us in person have brought some honeys to taste. It's gonna be a lot of fun. And then we're gonna do stories, we're gonna do questions, we're gonna do, brain puzzlers about, okay, what this weird thing happened this year and I don't know why it happened. And this is not an expert committee. This is not an expert panel. Thank you, words. Expert panel. Today, this is a poll the audience time to say, hey, I had this weird thing, or I had this fun thing, or I had this thing that I don't know if it was weird or fun or sad or good or bad or whatever. We'd love to hear about it. Anything that's related to beekeeping. So that's going to be the rest of this meeting. Next meeting, we are having Bree Price from Washington State University here. She is going to be talking to us about native bees. I'm really excited about this one. I saw the brief on it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We had a native bee talk requested at the picnic by a few different people. So here's our native bee talk. I hope everyone really enjoys it. That is going to be at the October meeting of PSBA here, 4th Tuesday, starting at 6:30, just as always. And then our November meeting, I am really hoping that everyone will be able to join us in person. for our annual potluck business meeting and elections. So every year we do elect 5, at least theoretically 5, board members, trustees, as well, who serve for a 2-year term. And then our officers are all elected for 1-year terms. So all of your officers will be either running for reelection or not, depending on what they have chosen. Your trustees, I know that we have some open spots of people who do not want to run again for another 2-year term. If you have any interest, whether you're in the room or online, if you have any interest in a position as a trustee or as an officer, please email me, peter@rainydaybees. Sorry, that is totally wrong. I'm sorry. Don't email that address. Email president@PugetSoundBees.org. Don't email my business email, please. I was on autopilot there. So yeah, if you have any interest whatsoever being a trustee, being an officer, please email president@PugetSoundBees.org. I'll get you hooked up, answer any questions, and move forward. I know for sure that our current secretary would love to be relieved of her position and have someone else take over as the secretary next year. So if you have any interest in the officer position of secretary, that one is definitely available. Also, Bruce Becker, our treasurer, who has been treasurer for 13 years, I think we decided, is also wanting to move on, retire, go travel the world, have fun. So we are also looking for a new treasurer, and this does not have to be someone who is super awesome financial CPA, whatever. Bruce can train you. We're hoping to maybe pick up some additional help, but if you are a super awesome CPA, bookkeeper, whatever, and would like to volunteer as the treasurer for Puget Sound Beekeepers Association, or if you just are interested in money and stuff like that, and helping PSBA manage its money responsibly, we would love to talk to you about the treasurer position. I think that is most of my announcements for today. We've got officer elections, our next 2 meetings. Anyone in the room or online, any important announcements that I did not say? Speak now or forever hold your peace, or at least for the next 5 minutes. Okay, cool, awesome. That's all of our announcements for today. Thank you all so much for being here. We're going to take a 15-minute break. People who are online, please talk, discuss, enjoy yourselves, or go get a snack. People in person are going to go get a snack, do the honey tasting, have fun here, and we will meet back up at 7:15. Thank you all. Talk to you soon.
Hey everyone.
Hello.
Hello, hi Macaulay. Hi Sven, everybody. Tracy, how's it going?
Good.
How are
I
you
tried to
doing this year?
Sven, do you
Sorry.
want to take that one?
Sure. I had 3 hives that had a trickle of honey all year, which was really weird. Turns out I needed to trim some trees. But I do have a question for people. Do we have privet in this area?
We do in my area, tons of it.
Because I got a flow that was definitely not blackberry at the tail end of blackberry.
Our privet blooms right after the blackberry. There's
Okay.
typically a week or 2 of overlap, and there's, like I said, tons of it around here.
Yeah, that's what I've been calling what I pulled out, but I wasn't sure.
Over here, my bees are doing good. I was hoping to double my colonies, but now that I'm in Montana, they overwinter really well because it's not wet, but they do have a short season because we're at almost 7,000 feet. So one of my splits had a hard time making a queen. I tried twice and I ended up combining them with my other split, and so I have 3 booming colonies going into winter.
Well, if you have 3 in the spring, you're doing all right. For that matter, if you have 2 in the spring, you're probably doing all right.
True. Yeah, I'm gonna hope for that.
I had a weird thing happen this year. Um, I've had some medical issues, have not been able to tend to my hives. I finally decided around end of March that if I was not going to do anything for the hives that I should be doing to prevent them, running off and splitting off themselves, I should at the very least set up an empty box somewhere that if anybody, takes off, they might move in. And the
Mhm.
very next day, it was full of bees.
That's a good
Um,
problem to have.
Yes. So I had sort of expected to make it through the summer with 3 or 4 out of the 4 hives that made it through the winter. And now I'm moving into the end of September and I've got 5 hives, one of which is on my deck 20 feet above the ground by my kitchen instead of on the ground where I would have preferred it. But I guess that's better than losing all the bees. So
Yeah.
um, as long as I've got the floor, I don't know if anybody knows anyone who is thinking about being a brand new beekeeper next year. I'm thinking about getting rid of everything. I am not able to take care of these guys the way I should. If 3 or 4 of the 5 hives make it through to spring, I have enough boxes and everything else to probably get two new beekeepers started. So if anybody knows of anybody who's like, yeah, I don't want to spend $2,000 on brand new woodenware and hive tools and veils and smokers and bees and everything, I could probably get someone started for a good price.
I do know someone. I have a friend who has a farm, and bees are the next thing she wants to add to the farm. So if she decides she does it next spring, I definitely can give you at least 1 new beekeeper.
I will bring it up again in a couple of weeks, or I can send you my email or phone number and you can text me or whatever works for you.
Sounds good.
There, I'll just put my phone number in the text here in the chat. I assume your friend is somewhere in the Seattle area, I hope.
Yep, she's in Snohomish.
Okay. Well, one way or another, we could find a way to move my stuff out there.
Sounds good.
Where are you
Oh.
located, Brian?
North Seattle, near where the Northgate Mall used to be.
Oh, okay. I might know a few people, and I'm in the Wedgwood area, so
Okay,
I'll
yeah.
keep in touch.
Obviously, I can't promise how many hives will make it through the winter, but I can certainly promise, like I said, a smoker and a hive tool and a veil and a this and a that and split up whatever hardware and bees I've got left. Should be enough, like I said, for 2 people. Send me a text message. I just put my number in the chat.
I just did.
It was a good year here. This is the first time in 3 years that I've actually harvested any honey, and we got about 6 gallons. But I did it a very lazy way. I think each of my hives is going to go into winter with 150 or 200 pounds of honey on top of them, and I'm just going to leave it that way.
Hey, it's never bad to have too much, right? I always, well, again, it's in Montana, so it's a little bit of a different climate, and we have a full 6 months of winter. We had our first hard freeze today, and we're gonna have snow within the month on the ground, so the bees will stop probably pretty soon. But I give them 100 pounds every year per hive. I did have a really good honey flow this summer though, because I started from packages again since I moved back down from Alaska.
Sure.
And I got 3 medium boxes that are, I think, mostly full of honey out of the
Okay.
2 colonies. And I split them, both of them, so I removed a fair amount of population, so that's a really good score.
Other than prepping for winter and obviously the timing of the season, is there a lot of sort of rules of thumb that you had gotten used to here that you had to rethink?
I didn't. Well, the poundage of honey, mostly it's made it easier than anything. But I need to make sure that they have enough honey, and I need to make sure that the frames are all packed. You don't want empty frames or empty space because it gets really cold. It's below 0 almost every morning for 3 months out of the year. So based on that, I'm very careful with, I kind of rearrange my beehives a lot in the fall. For the rest though, I think I do something similar to Seattle. I don't have to worry too much about water in my hives, so that's nice. I do have to worry about grizzly bears.
Yeah. And you don't treat grizzly bears the same way you do water. I don't think you can just put some pine shavings around your hives and hope that will stave off a 800-pound or 2,000-pound hungry
No,
bear.
that is actually for people who have bears. There's this nonprofit. Gosh, I would need to pull up the name again. There's this nonprofit that kind of taught me through how to build the electric fence.
Oh,
So that
cool.
was nice. So I have a 10,000-volt fence around my beehives. And they are also in a 3-sided protective shed, essentially, that mimics. It basically is the same as what we used back in the Alps, where I grew up, and it is. It's something that would work actually in the Seattle area because it would protect against the rain. It protects against the snow, and it's the same system as the Slovenian systems, essentially, but in a shed with regular Langstroth sitting in that shed.
Cool.
So yeah, it's a little bit of a different setup in that sense, but the management of the hives themselves, it's mostly that we're shifted. They don't start building up until April, and then they're still very big right now, whereas in Seattle, I suspect they're starting to be smaller already quite a bit.
Okay, I see a method in a message in the chat from Darius saying, could everyone chime in what setup you will be doing in winter? Insulation, top entrance, quilt box. I'm gonna have insulation on top, not on the sides. I'm gonna have top entrances on 4 of my hives, but well, I guess I could cut a hole for the 5th one, but I don't have enough notched equipment for 5 out of 5.
Yeah, for me it's top entrance, bottom entrance, quilt box, vented in the front as well. So lots of insulation on top, none on the sides. Although I do run 2 hives that are that are 3.5-inch insulated to start with, but I found that makes absolutely no difference. They prefer the insulated hives during the summertime. They don't care during the wintertime.
I know a lot of people also use follower boards in case that's something that you want to think about, Darius. It helps with the airflow and the humidity flow in the hives by giving an outlet on the sides for the humidity to go to. So that's another, I think, effective method. Obviously, mine are less relevant. Mine are super insulated everywhere, and then I let them get buried in snow, which adds insulation.
Does Does anyone have a preference over moisture boards or quilt boxes? I've done the moisture boards. I got the home soaked boards that I cut myself. And I put two on, two consecutive ones on top of each other as a moisture board, and that seemed to work pretty well. I had kind of iffy results with quilt boxes. So, does anyone have a preference, or what's your experience with either one?
I think most people, I believe Tracy uses moisture boards as well, and Kathy does too. And that's because their capacity to absorb water is a little bit different and might be higher than quilt boxes. I use quilt boxes, but I'm in a very dry climate. So moisture boards would just stay dry. And in fact, quilt boxes, the wood chips might get slightly wet, which will allow them to then drink. So I would suspect moisture boards, if you had better results, that might get confirmed by some of the others. But Brian, Sven, or anyone else who's got bees, what do you all do on your end?
I
Mine
don't
are all-
remember which is what. What's a moisture board and what's a quilt box?
That's a great question. To me, the moisture boards are that like special, highly water absorbent, kind of agglomerated wood thing. The quilt boxes are a box with a mesh screen in which you put wood chips. And because I have chickens and I'm in a cold climate that's dry, I use quilt boxes. So I just use some of the bedding from my chickens in that. A moisture board would be like one of those special boards that you can even buy in
Mine is a rectangle of 1x2s stapled together with some window screens stapled underneath and a couple of handfuls of wood chips thrown in, done. Took me
Okay.
all of 15 minutes to make.
So you're a quilt box person.
Yeah, I'm a quilt box converted from converted mediums. Basically, I've drilled a couple holes for vents in the front, and then it is wire mesh on the bottom, burlap, shavings, and then 1-inch insulation on top, and a little bit of plastic as well to keep water from the top of it from going all the way up to the top. And it stays wet all winter, but it's not really dripping on the bees.
That's cool. Do you fill up the entire medium with the wood shavings then, Sven?
Yeah, with the exception of what the burlap and the insulation is doing. So I've
That's
got
cool.
1 inch on top and then a 1/2 inch on the bottom that is, and then yeah, the pine shavings just become the dumped out in front of the hives as weed killer.
Uh-huh. Makes sense.
And that's like, so I buy one of those really big pine shaving things, and like 3 hives took like a quarter of one of the largest size ones. So I'm gonna be in pine shavings for a while.
You gotta get chickens. They use those a lot.
Yeah.
That's cool. I had never thought of actually augmenting the thickness at the top. I made my own, just like Brian. But I think mine are about 1.5 inches thick, maybe. So I'm not curious as to like how what it does for temperature regulation and like what the difference would be if you made it a lot thicker. I guess, Regina, you just ran into the whole it's half science, half art, and everybody does different things.
Yeah, I had moisture or quilt boxes before, but I just found that they got very soggy, and I changed them out a lot. I mean, honestly, I just find the moisture boards are just easier to deal with, and you can just lift up you know, the telescoping cover and the insulation, and you can see right away if you need to swap it out with a fresh one. And so I think part of it is it's just less messy and easier to deal with. And it seems to work well.
Cool.
But I also use a feeding shim that has a kind of it's got a bottom to it, like a board with a hole in it. And it's supposed to be for feeding, but you just leave that hole open because that's where you could put like a quart jar. And I just fill that up with sugar and they can go up there and feed. And then all the moisture can hit the moisture board above. And it seems to work.
Mhm.
I feel like it took me a while to find a winter solution for the moisture here.
Yeah. I think that's
But
pretty
I've been able
close to what others are
overwinter
doing too.
3 years now. Yeah. I have a lot more hives this year, so I'm gonna have to buy a little more equipment. They went bonkers in June, and so I started with 4 and I have 9 now.
Nice. Is that something you're happy with, or is that something where you'd rather have less hives? Because you can always recombine, right?
I know I'm happy with it. It was yeah. I'm super happy. I had a great I got a lot of honey. It was just a lot of work, when you're constantly, you know, May and June when you're constantly in your hives and every time I went in there, I'm like, oh, I gotta split again. It it was a lot of work for those 2 months. But I'm happy with what I have.
Nice.
I
What kind of
don't
bees
know
do you
what
have
Vivaldi
actually?
boards are. All different kinds, but I think they're mostly Italian and Carnelians.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what a
Are you talking
Vivaldi
about
board
Vivaldi
is.
boards?
Are they kind of they're like a feeder box, but they have a bottom to them with a hole in it?
Yeah. Well, hold on, you guys. I'll
Okay.
mute myself again because it's loud in here, but I've got one in the room. I'll turn my camera on in a second and show you guys what those look like.
Like, so we have Island, we have like, so I tasted a lot of that.
Here's what the box looks like on the inside. There's a hole on the bottom, like a inner cover. And then a lot of them come with this screen box board, so you can put sugar in there, fondant, and be able to put chips in the front or in the rest of it. And there's vents on the ends. All vents.
No, that's not quite what mine looks like. I'll see if I can.
I can't.
That's very interesting. Tracy, is yours handmade or is yours from Commerce?
Is it what?
Is it handmade or did you purchase it?
No, neither, but it's a purchased one. It's a Man Lake Vivaldi board.
Okay. Yeah. And Darius said, like, I was trying to figure out how to answer that question. Mine are all handmade, so what I have for quilt boxes might not be the standard. It looks like Tracy's came from an actual manufacturer, so it looks like you can find at least some that look like that. Looks like we're cut off from the rest of the world again.
The joys of technology.
Yep.
But it is really nice since the pandemic being able to do this remotely.
Yep, this is why this was I remember this was a debate when the pandemic was receding and we were discussing, you know, like, okay, will the membership want to be all back in person or not? For me, it'd be simple. I would not be able to participate anymore. And I think there's a lot of parents with kids, the people that live far away, et cetera, that, you know, makes it nice to have a hybrid option.
Hey, Magali, have you seen any bears really by your hives?
I have not, but I have seen bears above my house. I basically live in sagebrush and then the mountain goes up above my house just a few hundred yards. And then it goes up 3,000 feet to a ridge. And on that slope above the house, I've seen a black bear. We've caught grizzlies on trail cams. So yeah, we definitely have bears in the area. They just don't come down too much where we are. And I've made sure that if they ever do venture down, it'll shock their little nose and they won't come back.
Interesting, yeah. So they can smell that honey, can't they?
Definitely they can. Because they don't know what it is. I'm actually lucky, right? Because I live at the entrance to Yellowstone Park. So until one of us trains them on what honey is, they don't know what it is. And so they can smell it, but that doesn't mean they're gonna come and get it. Down in Wyoming, there's a sow that knows what honey is, and it was like 3 or 4 years ago, she was taking down every beehive she could find that one fall. I actually wonder if it was not $3.99. I should look back to the correspondence I had with a friend of mine who's down there. And yeah, she was saying she was sort of praying that her hives would not get hit because she would come in and destroy every hive. And she's hit a lot of high wrenches that fall. She was teaching her babies to do that too.
Even with the electric fence?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Once they know the honey, 10,000 volts is not going to stop them. They'll go right for
Oh,
the honey.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Grizzly bears, you really can't stop via anything once they've learned what honey is. So it's really a preventative method. The only way is to cull the bear. And I don't know that Fish and Wildlife would do that for honey. So not cool for beekeepers. And not cool for the bears, right? Because it puts them in danger.
Pretty scary.
Mm. But they've been nice to us. I don't mind them. They're cute.
I'm originally from Whitefish, Montana, so very familiar with grizzlies. We'd wake up and there'd be bird seed all over.
Oh, yep, that's true. That's why I don't feed the wild birds. Not until they go to sleep. Once they go to sleep, I have less of a qualm about feeding the magpies that live in my yard. But yeah,
Yeah.
same thing. Like I would have the
Crows
same.
of the
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I said magpies are the crows of the Rocky Mountains.
Yeah, I have a family that nests in my yard. They started a few years ago, and they're the cutest. And the babies kind of adopted us. Plus, we have chickens, so obviously they figured out that chicken food is good. So we feed them when it's like blizzard time in the middle of winter a little bit. I put chicken food out.
Okay, people online, are you able to hear us here in the room?
I hear you.
We are good.
Yeah.
So sorry for the delays getting us back online. I don't want to interrupt anything that was going on there. So if you guys are in the middle of a conversation, please continue, and then we'll jump in and continue as soon as you guys are done with that specific one.
I think you're good. We were just catching up on whether grizzly bears are nice and how to deal with bird feeding and bee feeding with grizzly bears around.
Yay. 1 sec. We have a question from the room.
So if I'm Amy Beth, I'm the one that was yelling at Peter earlier. No, I'm this other guy. But I wanted to start off with our question for today, especially after the honey tasting. I wanted to hear about people's honey harvests first. So like, I want to raise a hands at both online and in person. Who had like phenomenal? This is my best honey harvest ever. Woo! We got one. We got a couple. We got a few. Yay! Who had a like? It's fine. Okay. Who had it was not great. Okay. Who had, I have no idea if this is my first harvest ever. Yay, we got 2. We got, yay, 3. Oh, that's it.
First significant.
Yeah, okay. First time ever been. Hey, first time ever.
Anyone else first year for maple, by the way? Because this was a nice maple year. Yeah.
We have some on what? Yeah. And if so, maple blossom honey, if anyone, I'm gonna give a quick just nectar flows. We have big leaf maple blossom. It's a native tree. If you were not a beekeeper before, you didn't know that it had blooms. I feel like that's like a rite of passage, is learning that those weird tendrils are blooms in a big nectar source. Then we have Himalayan blackberry is our big summer flow, and then fall is often, sometimes not. Now, there's lots of little flows in between all those, but those are our primary. Big leaf maple is like light and citrusy. It is super good. So if you ever can get.
It tastes like maple syrup.
Yeah. I disagree on my.
Yeah, but that's a whole, yeah.
It is interesting though, and I'm sorry for everyone who just spoke up. It is super interesting how everyone's palate is really different when it comes to honey. I taste one thing and I taste something completely different from another person who might taste the exact same honey. Palates differ a lot.
And big leaf maple, I feel like can be more polar, I think. A lot, I mean, it's one of my favorites, but you can get people who are like, bleh, like there's something about it that can get some people's outs. But okay, so I think we had like 3 in the room and maybe 1 or 2 online. It was like first harvest. Congratulations. Did anyone who's the first time beekeeper is like, I didn't harvest anything, but okay. Yeah. So for those who had strong purpose, I'm curious, like what flows did you get a lot of? What were those like? Brad, what was it?
I got like 600 pounds for my partner.
Okay, and how many hives are you running?
19.
19 hives, 600 pounds. Nice. Woo. Yeah.
But I got like 50 pounds of maple too, which is my first thing.
And where are your hives located?
Stewart Park, Rainier Beach, one way.
Lots of it. Anyone else who's like, got a lot? Yeah.
I didn't really have time to do anything for my bees at all summer because I was busy, but I did a lot to set them up in the spring and put the comb that I had and the rings in there and came back way late and it was done.
Honeycomb is, I feel like, is one of the best resources. I know as we were growing, that was always the limit, is how much drum we have.
Second.
10 if it's completely 10.
Yeah.
I bought a speed bottle this year. Just so.
Are your bees origin now? That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not right. Not there.
No.
I got in there and they didn't attack me at all. Like a week ago. Yeah.
Getting off yellow and white orange pollen this week. Well, and what it's from.
Anyone have any idea? Bright orange pollen? Dandelion.
Well,
Dandelion?
also,
Sunflower.
They're meeting right now, I don't know if these like that. Then what were you saying?
Sunflower is another bright red.
No,
Oh, yeah.
it's.
I made the mistake, I read an article in Bee Culture about how sunflower pollen is super nutritious for honeybees. And then I realized that I had bought all pollenless sunflowers. So just watch out for that if you're growing sunflowers, the non-floral varieties for your bees. Just any sort of boring conventional sunflowers, basically, it's the fancy ones that are more specifically floral and they'll that are pollen sled. Because then the bees don't like there's not then the pollen nutrition for that because sunflower pollen is actually incredibly nutritious.
I don't think it was actually that it was nutritious, it was that it had other benefits other than nutrition.
It's good.
Yeah, right.
What?
This was like a year and a half ago, I think, that we read this one. Amy Beth might be able to look it up. Amy Beth can probably look it up. I think it had something to do with disease resistance or something like that. But Amy Beth can probably look that up for us. Magali, I'm here. I'm going to volunteer you. I think you raised your hand that you got a nice honey harvest and you're outside of our, outside of the Puget Sound. What did you get?
So it's actually really funny. So I'm in the middle of the meadows up in Montana. So I get actually a lot of honey from field pennycress is the main one that I usually get. But I got a flow before that from the wild geranium. And sometimes if the early season's good, it was rainy this season, so it didn't happen. But I get a dandelion flow as well. It's basically continuous once dandelions start. It's a continuous flow all the way until the first hard freeze.
Thank you. Is jealous.
Well, they get a lot of fall.
The flow is.
Okay. Sorry, my wife and I are trying to gesture at each other to, communicate what it is I'm supposed to do, and I don't know, I still don't know what it was. I thought I did the right thing. Anyway. Were there, for those of us who are in the room, I'm just gonna throw a question back up to the online. Were there any cool stories or cool questions or cool discussions that we missed that someone wouldn't mind going over real fast so we can enjoy too? Just random talk stuff. Yeah, we're here to tell stories. Anybody here? No, nothing online that was fun in that 25 minutes. Good enough. Kit, did you have a story?
No. No, Peter was just seeing if they had any online.
We had an interesting poll online. It was all, quilt boxes versus moisture boards. Who does what? And we thought it was binary and it wasn't binary at all. Some of us did one, but like with a twist, it was all different. So that could be an interesting one to survey the room on.
Okay. Go into the room. How many people in the winter do some form of quilt box? A quilt box, by the way, if we define our terms really fast, for those of you who did not hear Tracy's presentation, a quilt box is a box with a bottom that moisture can pass through, and then it has some sort of filling in it. And that would traditionally be like wood chips or newspaper shavings, or I personally think that you can count, dry sugar as kind of a variation on that as well. But some form of quilt box, and then the quilt box above that moisture transfer area is vented so that the moisture can move up through that through the material and then vent out the top. to keep your hive nice dry. How many people in the room do some sort of six, am I right? Yeah, 6 people do some form of quilt box, moisture boards, anyone that would be a one, George, 3. I don't know why I only said George's name.
Brad's good.
I have a couple, so I don't know if you need it, like if there's moisture.
Anyone do more of a condensing hive style, either online or in the room, where you would just have insulation on the top, and then the goal is that we have condensation on the sides of the boxes for the bees to be able to drink. 2.
And if we do it, that sounds a little bit too specific. Because what if you don't care about whether the bees are drinking them?
That's right. If you just do insulation on the top.
And then
Okay, and who uses follower boards? Oh, cool. There's so many ways to overwinter, and the main goal of all of them is to keep the bees dry. Whether you're trying to vent all the moisture out or put the moisture just in specific parts of the hive or whatever. The goal is that they stay dry, and then you can do more stuff to help them stay warm a little bit easier. There's all sorts of, as long as the bees stay dry and can be warm, we can succeed. We don't have horribly harsh winters in most of our area.
So I have another question, did anyone try anything new this year that felt successful? Or what new things did people try this year?
Or did not feel successful. Failures are good too. Sorry.
It was my first year re-queening successfully without having to buy queens.
Hey, how did you do it?
Luck. Stopping swarms.
The best way to start. Yeah, okay.
So sorry, I want to ask Sven another question. Does that mean that we're working with an emergency queen, or you just happened to find like a swarm queen or a swarm cell that you saved and emerged somewhere else? How much luck versus planning are we talking about?
I did a walkaway split that ended up making a new queen. The old queen ended up being replaced by an emergency queen, and the other hive was about to swarm. I gave them more space. They did not swarm, and the new queen hatched and apparently replaced the old queen.
Success. Good job.
I had a very strong little winter hive that was going to swarm early on and wasn't able to find the queen. You just split it into 2, sounds similar situation, and then both were very strong. And actually the harvest time off of my split. Yeah, exciting.
Got another one.
Yeah, it's like my first year ever since. And I asked Tracy. First, they made like an emergency queen cell, and then around me after that, and then I moved bring up eggs for my husband. And so it worked, and then again. Hey, wow, I'm in here. Full handmade this call on. And I did it for.
I'm going to give you like triple points for doing it. Awesome.
Anything else that was successful? Yeah.
I actually got 2 swarms here in mid-June and actually got money. So that was pretty.
In mid-June?
Yeah, like they really built up, and it's really surprised them. I mean, it helps to have wax foundation from the start, but that was a kicker. But to be able to pull money off them, usually like, just add it to the, with that. I did feed them, like first got them a little bit just to kind of get them, the queen going, but there was orange outside it, but pretty much. And yeah, it's they're looking nice from size. So nice.
I'll share one of ours. We took hives to a new fireweed field thankfully we'd already been, well, two to the fire fields, but thankfully we've been scouting them already because the bridge up to Mowich Lake, Mount Rainier, is closed for maybe forever. And that was where we had been taking our bees. But one of them was a former fire up at US 2. We got one of the lightest, purest fire weeds honey's that we've had in a since in a very long time. Because clear cuts, it's like you still have a lot of goldenrod, all of that, but this was pretty much just fire. So it's fun.
So samples?
No, I
George brought a firewood sample that looks very encouraging.
yeah, I was like, they're like
Yeah, George has a very, very nice firewood here.
Yeah,
That's visual.
Grand Falls.
A clear cut in Grand Falls, we came out and looked at it. There was a lot of firewood there, and that's okay.
You know, the gal that has Simone Steve, she has a firewood master. And she, so, and it doesn't look totally clear. I mean, like, there was nothing in there, like, you sure it is? Sure. Yeah.
Fireweed is impressively light colored when it's pure. I don't know that it's usually a true water white, but yeah.
what did anything go?
I'll do one more. We experimented with Viroxan this year, which is a new mite treatment that we've talked about before, but we did go through after all of the treatments. I might have said this at the last meeting, I don't remember, but we did go through and do mite washes at the end of that. And the vast majority of the hives had held it under 2% mites throughout the entire summer that had Viroxan on them. So I was very happy with the outcome of that.
Well, do you otherwise expect?
I mean, it's going to be the question. Sorry, repeating the question for those online was what would we expect to see otherwise? By the end of the summer, depending on the hive, it could be. I mean, you could have some really good ones that are in the 0 to 2% range, but you're also going to have a bunch that are in the 5 to +% range, and then the really bad ones. You look at that alcohol wash, and it's just all mites. Yeah, and you don't bother counting them because
It's like a stone blow.
Yeah. So the next question was whether we treated them again with Formic for the fall. We did decide to treat them again with Formic for the fall, to just make sure that our mite counts going into the fall were as low as possible. My goal was to throw Viroxan on again after the Formic treatment. That mostly didn't happen. So we'll see how just keeping the mite levels super low throughout the summer and then hitting them with Formic is going to do, because that means hopefully that none of the hives, or very, very, very few of the hives at least, had super high disease levels. So we'll see what happens. I can't. Why do you want me to sit there? Okay.
I'm gonna try and help it.
Sam,
Yeah.
I marked all my queens this year, first time. And because I had a bad experience early on that got fat fingers, like Tootsie Rolls, and I squish queens pretty easy. My buddy started making these 3D printed, they look like something you floss your teeth with. They're plastic, like a slingshot with a rubber band in it. Takes the fear right out of it. You just kind of lightly hold the queen down, daughter, done. So he gave me a little more confidence because my eyes aren't better picky.
Gonna bring those? Yeah,
Yeah, he will bring, we'll be at the state conference or the state conference up in Linwood. His name's David Mann. We'll be helping Buzz and Maze up there. I'm sure he'll bring those up.
Is that a prototype thing at the moment, or is he actually selling?
No, he's actually selling them on Etsy, and Laura Bees came out with one that's smaller, and I like these because I have bigger hands, so they're just easy to use and they're pretty affordable. I got him also make UV blue entrances for swarm traps that really work well.
So this is a reminder for everyone and Peter, because I don't think you've registered yet. The WASBUS and the Washington State Beekeepers Conference is October 3rd through 5th, so it's in 9 days. and you could buy tickets through Thursday. So got 2 days. It's a nice like day and a half. Sort of Friday evening, Saturday all day, half a day Sunday, but a nice way to sort of, yeah, get even more learning and then talk to loved ones.
And it does include lunch and I think 2 breakfasts or light
Yeah, that's.
continental whatever's this time.
And it's just in Linwood. Thursday.
It's the tickets out the door.
I think you can still buy tickets at the doors, but I'm not sure.
Going through the food. We choose the door, walking food. You know, all great, like gear movement.
Thank you, Colin.
Morning refreshments for Saturday and Sunday and Saturday lunch all included in your ticket.
So for anyone online who couldn't hear what Connor just said, you can buy tickets at the door, but if you buy tickets at the door, food will not be included. So if you think you're going to be going, it's better to go ahead and order your tickets online before Thursday. Audley has her hand up. Amy Beth.
Might not be relevant anymore. We were talking about firsts, and my first this year is I haven't treated every one of my hives. I finally stopped chickening out and did not fully cold turkey not treat my hives, but Tom Cillier encouraged me, since I'm isolated, to start sort of doing natural selection and seeing if hives survive without treatment. So I did mite management, and one of my hives is not treated. So ask me in the spring if it survived or not.
So are you saying, Luckily, that you tested and it does not need treatment based on its mite levels? Is that what? You said
That
one
actually
hive is not-
happens almost every year. So for context, because I'm not in an urban area and there's literally no beekeeper around, what we've actually have had to ask is whether my queens would be able to mate with drones from the same apiary. And so we had to actually go, Kathy, I have to really give credit to Kathy and her own network on verifying that would be the case. So ultimately, I'm that isolated. I literally have no beekeepers around. And so when Tom Seeley, who, for those who don't know, Tom Seeley is one of our national most well-known bee researchers, when he learned that I was in this situation, he said, you should totally go cold turkey. Stop treating your hives, see what survives, do full natural selection. It'll be just like in the wild, right? 90% of them are going to die, and the ones that survive are going to be okay, except I keep only a few hives. So statistically, they would all die every time, probably, until one of them makes it. So I haven't dared do that. I've been sitting on that for several years, doing the same management as everybody else, where even if they're below the threshold, and most of them are below the threshold, most of them are below 6 mites count in the wash, I still treat them because I'm just too scared of the diseases. I treat only once a year, but this year there's one hive that I didn't treat at all. So I'll see.
You've done your homework. No one can say you haven't done your homework.
But of things that they're trying that they're like, I have to tolerate this winter.
And then Alpagar much later than I was originally taught to do it, for the specific reason of the migration hives that has made my really low numbers still really high in there. So I'm still very tail end of treating, which seems still very reasonable temperature wise and everything. And I would assume I'm catching some of the migrations now. See.
Yeah, I don't use Apicard, but Tracy, temperatures should still be absolutely.
Yeah, they're fine. In fact, putting on my second treatment, tomorrow.
Well, it seemed like.
Yeah, I put it on the slate.
Yeah, that's what I started doing. And I think
Yeah. Jeff and I joke every year about the third honey blow, and I'm in the middle of the third honey. That's my bees are robbing out all the colonies around me. I tend to use that for.
Maybe children. Tough me.
You know, you're responsible beekeepers like us, right?
Screening, after lots for yeah.
Forming.
Just kind of off and off, as it looks like.
That works too, because Kidsby is almost always the.
Uh, so Kit was saying, for those online, Kit was saying that she does, after an August formic treatment, she does a second formic treatment in October. And then Tracy commented that that seems to work very well because Kit's bees tend to survive. Kit, question from me for you. For your October formic and I guess the August one, do you do a 2-pad treatment on both of them or 1-pad treatments, or how do you do that?
Yeah, I just saw it too.
2-pad treatments both times.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Out, I lost a couple of queens and read that you have to not go through the hive before you treat the hive. So I don't do that anymore, and that I'm not in issues. I don't know if it's that significant.
I think there's a lot of activity there and everything.
Right.
Just like, yeah,
And I'm just overwhelmed with prayer. Much without that, that's all they are, and they do, you know, real thing.
For people online, Smugly, Sven, whomever, when people are talking in the background here, are you able to understand them very well or not from the microphone? Kind of man, okay. I'll keep repeating things as needed.
Oh,
And for Lynn, whoop, go. Who said something? Regina said something, I think.
I can't hear, I can't hear him very well.
Okay, great. Everyone in the room, if you are talking, would you try to speak up? And if you're going to be talking for a longer period, if you would come up to the owl, that would be awesome. So that the people online can hear us better.
We were talking good things in celebration. Did anyone have anything that went not great this year, horribly wrong? Any fun stories?
I have a bear story. Everyone likes bear stories. You guys were talking about bears earlier. I get to talk about bears now. So on one of my fireweed fields, you know, we bring up I brought up 30, I think it had 32 hives at it at the time. Maybe 40, somewhere in that range. But we set up our electric fence. It's a 3-wire fence. I've got a solar charger on it. And this particular solar charger was one that wasn't working. And I was like, well, it's just that the battery's bad. So I got a new battery for it, and I put the new battery in it, and it was working. So I was like, great, cool, everything's fine. Turns out that the battery was not the problem on that solar charger. The problem was that the solar charger was not charging the battery. So I got back. Yeah, this is like an hour and a half to plus drive. So I got back up there a couple weeks later and I was like, oops, the fence isn't working. No bear has got to it yet. I'm going to push my luck a little bit. And the next time I got up there, I had pushed my luck a little bit too far. Now, thankfully, this apparently was maybe a very, very, very young bear because it did not do a massive amount of damage. I got up there and I was like, was this a bear? It's like a couple lids have been knocked off of hives, but that's about it. I was like, okay, that's not good. There's probably a bear. Maybe it was a human. Don't know for certain, but probably a bear. So went into overdrive trying to get, my electric fence charger fixed, but I can't do that, immediately. Came back the next day, the bear had, done a bit more damage. It had actually knocked a couple boxes off. Got back, I think, for the 3rd time, finally with a working solar energizer that was going to keep things going. Or no, this was a battery. I got a battery charger finally. I stole a battery charger from somewhere else that wasn't having air issues yet. Pushing my luck again. And this bear, though, by this point, had learned that it could, slide underneath the fence. So even when I finally had the working fence with like 11,000 volts on it, the bear was still, and I baited it. The bear was still being like, I can slide under the fence and just like shove the wire up. So I fought this bear for like at least 2 weeks with a armed energizer that was shocking it. I think I finally managed to stop it. I added a net, electric net around that side of the fence that the bear was getting in as well, and energized that too, so that the bear could no longer just slide under. I was like, fine, it's gonna have to test the fence now and, you know, walk around and figure out if there's another place they can get in. Finally, the bear's not getting in. That's awesome. But yeah, those types got messed with. So anyway, bears, have a working electric fence or something else that's working, and don't let them ever learn that they can get in through it, because they are crafty. That's my bear story for the year.
Okay. Anyone have anyone mess anything up? No epic stories this year? Tracy was showing photos for bear from how long ago?
I killed it years ago. First time, I had to put them in dog care. My bees. So I put my bees at a canal in a dog kennel, 6-foot tall dog kennel with 5 strands of hot wire around it. And then I tried to dig under one year too. So yeah,
They're crafty.
persistent.
Yeah.
Persistent.
So I had an email that got run over by a farm fever.
That one's new.
Brandon Falls. Some guy that was gonna go out, and then he got stuck. Then he backed up and hit one of my cars. He did not try to sideways. You get stung? Yeah. I got done. Then I saw where he dug deep here and there. So.
Oh. For everyone online, if you couldn't hear that, George just said that one of his hives at his Granite Falls apiary, where he gets fiery honey, got run over by a 4-wheeler. It's got all of the track marks and going like back and forth, trying to get out of the area. I said that one's a new one for me. I haven't seen that one.
We did have Brad Jones of Seola Bee was moved our hives with his new to him forklift, and so we were really relieved that he never dropped any of the pallets of bees. That was, interesting with someone who's learning the forklift. It's a little scary. So, but they had success. And when you hear about people flipping, like pallets of bees, and no, thank you. Oh, something we got this year, I got sold on social media for these like camp lights that have a red light. So for moving hives at night, it's gonna need bee work. That has been amazing to have tall red lights for moving hives at night. No,
These can't see red light.
I've used the red headlamp.
yeah, use the headlamps, but
The headlamp, of course, if you're moving hives at night, it's dark. If you're using white light, you're gonna get a lot of bees buzzing you, coming out, being like, what are you doing? So you can use a red headlamp, but of course, a red headlamp going through your veil, you end up getting a lot of reflected light back off of the veil. It gets a little, it's better than nothing, but it is a little annoying. I'm like, how do I get one like go close next to my?
You can get fill your hat.
You could get or yeah, one that could actually clip onto the veil. Yeah, that would be a good one too. But we did buy these, telescoping red floodlights that, charge via USB. They were nice.
Like off-road camping.
Yeah. We don't need to go super lengthy one, but
The last thing I wanted to ask was if were there mysterious things that happen in people's lives, or like things that they're still trying to figure out or stumped from this year? Yeah.
pull the audience online or in person. And they're stumping you.
I know the big mystery right now on the Facebook page is zombies. People are having the bees and wasps are affected too. If you leave your porch light on, they'll fly, they're attracted to the light. It's kind of a weird science thing, but the zombie fly organization has citizen science, and you can collect some of those dead bees the next morning and then put in a jar, and the zombie fly larva will come out and will make a little chrysalis on the side of your glass jar. And you take a photo and add your location to their website. Citizen science.
Jeff Steenbergen, I believe, did that a number of years, like right when the zombie first came out, he brought that in was a show and tell thing.
Has anyone seen them themselves yet? Get crazy
every year.
I feel like I've been hearing more people talk about it this year.
Yeah. What? No, that might have came mostly drones out, but it's mostly the workers.
So is anyone concerned about ivy honey? Or do we just let it happen?
Well, what to eat it, or
Takes care
it's
So the question in the room is anyone concerned about ivy honey? When you get ivy honey, what do you do with it? Do you let the bees have it? Do you shake it out? Do you what do you think about ivy honey? Do you prevent it in the first place?
It's what I'm eating.
So. Yeah, it's usually the colder months, so you don't really, unless you're eating it. And it's a good food source, I think. Bees, you can find it's really crystallized in frames. Like if it's spring, you can see it, but it seems earlier this year than normal, but usually it's a winter thing.
I don't see it yet at all, but I haven't. I've saved until now to give them to eat. It's up to the net because they don't really want to eat it. They want to.
Well, it crystallizes.
Crystallized, they may think.
Crystallizes so they can't eat it in the winter. So if that's all you got in them, they'll starve. So usually in the spring, whenever they can get water, then they can rehydrate it and eat it. They usually eat all my by like March.
They have a lot of it. Their frames and white. And so I keep them until now when there's a dirt.
Great, good idea.
But they don't really want it down. No, tastes terrible. They think so too.
Or Magali has her hand up. Magali, did you have?
Yes, I have a mystery to submit to the group. So we talk about ivy honey crystallizing, and field pennycress honey crystallizes really fast too. But my bees eat that all winter, every winter, and I have very high survival rate. So I keep wondering if it's not the fact of crystallization, but maybe the kinds of crystals or what it is. Because I'm still puzzling that one out. I don't know if anybody's got thoughts.
What kind of honey was it that your bees eat?
It's field pennycress. It's a brassica. It's a type of cabbage, mustard family plant. It's just a weed, but it does, when I put it in jars, it crystallizes within probably a couple of months, maybe a month. Like it's actually really fast.
Honey out of that. Make cream honey. With that way you don't have to worry.
Tracy is saying to make creamed honey with the field something cress. I feel like my bees do eat ivy, but maybe they're primarily eating it in the spring. I'm not actually totally certain about that. I've certainly never tested them on pure ivy going into winter.
I don't get full frames like you do, kid. I get a large of it or on the sides. another that spray, but I'll see them eat the other honey and leave the ivy honey until it gets warmer and because they can't seem to eat it.
Interesting. So they're even treating it differently than dry sugar even.
Oh, yeah, they'll eat the dry sugar first.
Yeah. Okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah, why do they? And they're why care what it is, as they came.
To Moggly's question, it would be, since I'm not familiar with the honey that you're getting, and I doubt that, anyone else in the room or online probably is either, it would be interesting to compare the natural crystallization of that honey versus ivy to see how they naturally crystallize similarly or differently from each other.
Because of size.
Yeah.
Yeah, just what Bob was thinking.
Right.
It could be bigger, it could also taste all.
It does taste terrible if you tried it.
Do bees have a sensitive taste?
This is actually a really fun activity. Tracy, do you want to do this? I have my own microscope, so I could look at a slide under the microscope of my honey. If you want to do that with the ivy honey, it'd be really cool. We could compare pictures and show that to the whole group next month.
Yeah, mine aren't bringing ivy honey in yet, but if they do, yeah, sure.
Kidding. If you're
It's the kids.
Give it up.
Science. She only needs a tiny spoon. 1 second.
Like, I'm leaving them out, it's just, wow. And they don't even really, around.
Bees aren't even interested in rotting the ivy, the crystallines are. Yeah.
That's a mystery. Yeah, it's taking up my valuable space. They can bring all that. Yes. Definitely. Any other questions or things people are trying to figure out?
Online mystery puzzlers. In first.
Maybe first who has a just like they don't understand what. But yeah. How is storing in face that we are.
Okay, we have a question in the room for how does Kit specifically, but it can also be for other people. How does Kit store her honey, her frames that have honey?
I put them in the freezer. And then I leave them in my laundry room. And then I watch for aces.
The answer from the room from Kit was she freezes them. And then she puts them in her laundry room. And then she watches for ants. She freezes them to kill wax moths, eggs, and moths.
That don't matter. Like it's eating the cabinet, like have a little.
Yeah, that goes in the refrigerator. Yeah, no, they'll like find it and then you have to move it. I mean, I really play music and chairs. I really a lot of work to save time. Yeah, between the ants and the moths and the bees and the wasps. I mean, I'm just like, insect sensitive.
Does anybody, in the room or online use totes? Like sealable totes, this first time that I've had, I'm trying to stay through winter to feed back, and I got some of the weather-proof quote unquote totes from Lowe's. You can store the frames in that.
That's beautiful.
We've got a thumbs up from Sven. I think that's probably a yes to that question.
Make sure you freeze them or spray the wax.
Yes, or use Paramount or something. Yes.
Yeah, but if you're gonna box them in.
Was that?
I took my supers off straight into a chest freezer behind the wall for 3 days below zero, and then pulled frames and put them in the totes.
Yeah.
So Connor, it only takes one wax moth larva to make it through and it'll destroy that whole box. Ask me how I know. So I would recommend putting Paramount in
Would recommend what?
putting paramoss in there.
Sitting at the honey though.
Well, no, he's just storing it for the bees, right? The wax.
That's save the honey, right?
The frames that I'm trying to save through are just for feeding back.
Oh.
But if I
Leave those in the box with the bees. You're gonna feed it back anyway, I leave it.
You say you leave it on the hive.
I leave it in the hive, yeah.
Is that how much honey do you have on your hive and your drink?
one deep of resources and one deep.
There are these mediums of honey, deeps of honey, deeps.
Well, I've got an idea that might not work on, but it might work. That is, if you freeze the box, you're putting it in a sealed box, airtight box, presumably. You take it out of your freezer and put it in there. And if you're worried about it, you don't want to have Tracy have trouble. Get a block of dry ice and carbon dioxide and water. So you can last longer. So you would be able to list.
A big piece of this is also, were the frames ever brooded?
If the frames ever have brood on them, Connor? That's a good question, Zach.
Yeah, no, not
Pollen.
on my honey skirts.
Or pollen, it's just pure white wax, it's never had anything else, so
There's no pollen.
there's no pollen.
It's only on top of pollen, you don't even know it's extracted.
Yes, yes.
So Sven's point was wax moths tend to only go for comb that has had brood in it. If it has never had brood in it, wax moths will tend to not go for it.
Yes.
If it is pure wax, these pure white wax that's never had brood in it, never had pollen in it, etc. I would still freeze it and then probably either use, if you're storing your comb, either use Paramoth or I use Sertan, which is a biological control that you spray on and it lasts for a couple of years. And it's quite effective as well. It's a
We put it in the pump sprayers so we can. In the box monster towel too.
Yeah.
yeah, that's what they actually
Eat the honey, they like all. Silly.
And
Or not.
I mean, obviously, if you only have a few frames, honey, extra. I would push all the bees down in the bottom box and I would store my extra honey in the top box on the colony.
But what if they already have a box of honey, then you're adding more space for them to keep warm?
Well, then it have to stay warm, they just have to stay dry.
The bees mostly eat the cluster in the winter. They mostly don't keep the home. They're pretty good at containing the heat within. And giving them a massive amount of space still isn't awesome, but 3 deeps with 2 of those being honey. Honey's actually a decent insulator. They'll leave.
Right? Much rather they need a small space. Right.
Yeah, empty spaces. In my
Yeah,
all opinions, everything's always opinions. In my opinion, empty space in the hive in the winter is usually a bad thing. Full space is probably fine, especially if there's food.
yeah.
I have a suggestion on Paramoth's pretty expensive to buy. You buy about pounds of beekeeping sites. If you go online, usually like Ace Hardware will sell it's Paramoth, but it's little mothballs, little tiny ones, but it is Paramoth. It's a little tougher to use, it's not crystallized. But I use them and it's the same ingredient, but it's not sold to the bee.
Just make absolutely certain that what you're getting is
Paramoth, yeah.
not a different moth.
Correct, yeah. It says Paramoth on it, but it's by Enos, E-N-O-Z. They make both, so make sure you get Paramoth. But it is a lot cheaper, you buy little bags. And I stack mine in my shed, 10 boxes high. I put it in between each box and usually controls it pretty well. Lid on the top. I get too many to freeze, so.
I just wanted to add on I'm gonna go backwards a little bit to the freezing of the frames, because Tracy pointed out that, if one moth or egg, whatever survives, they're gonna have a party. If you're putting in a full box of honey, that is a lot of thermal mass that needs to get down to, whatever temperature it is it's supposed to be. I've seen multiple different temperatures, so I would just, if you are freezing an entire box of foam or even just multiple frames next to each other, you just want to, I would stick a thermometer into that before you actually pull it out and make sure that the center of that thermal mass has actually gotten all the way down to the temperature needed to actually kill the wax moth. And so, in my opinion, Mogly's got her hand up again. But George, 1 second. Mogly, is this a continuation of this or a new thing?
It's me being facetious about the fact that maybe we should actually pull all of our wax moths, cultivate them, and then start a plastic recycling factory. Because I don't know if you all heard, but they've discovered that wax moth can actually digest plastic. So I don't know, maybe we have a power to us there.
So one year I stored boxes in the garage covered with hot like in a 1/16 of an inch very thick sugar bag plastic. They ate right through it to get between boxes.
You're so gross.
George has a question or a thought.
I draw my Christian things. It's by gospel.
Oh,
And that's what I wrote.
That way you only lose one storage container.
No, my God.
No, I know, but if the wax moths get in there, you only lose one storage container full of it, they can't move up between the boxes.
So. For you, yeah, so stuff that's ready for next year.
Yeah. I did this training.
On the lovely note of wax moths, anyone have a happier thing? So not mites, not wax moths.
A bug that's a bee pest that eats plastic isn't really a bad thing to have.
Like those UV lights that you hang up for air quote mosquitoes, don't catch any mosquitoes, but they catch lots of moths, and it really helps.
We do have those up in our space too, I've seen.
And what are they, UV lights? Those UV lights that you hang up and they're supposed to be for mosquitoes.
Like for a
Blue ones, yeah, I've never caught one mosquito in there, but they're always full of moths.
I've got a comment about wax moths. In our house, they get into the smoke alarm. And they trigger the smoke alarm. That's what's been. Yeah.
How many moths do you have?
I think.
That's from.
But even if there were a million, it seemed like that was one of the first places, and then your comment about the blue light, and there's just in the winter, it's just maybe a little bit warm enough. And so at like 3 o'clock in the morning, some smoke alarm in the house that's interconnected with all the other smoke in the house goes off. And you can't really figure out even which one it is.
We have a big central staircase in our house, and so you have no idea what floor the smoke alarm is coming up.
Hi, I wanted to mention about the smoke alarm. This is Karen. And we found that it's actually related to the barometric pressure change. And it's been understandable ever since. It's very heavily linked to the barometric pressure. So we have it in the fall and we have it in the spring.
And you're right by the water too, and so I bet that changes.
Does that explain why the wax moths are coming out of the smoke alarm?
Well, that's another problem, but
Now that you mention it, that is when my smoke alarm's false alarm too.
there's a lot of discussion on that on the internet. You can find a whole lot of people who share our pain.
Maybe yes, we should, this conversation is making a little bit of order on mystery. More mysteries of life, not necessarily meanings. Yay, any last pieces before we close up? Great.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone online and in person for being here. This was a great conversation. Looking forward to next month, Reprise from Washington State University is going to be presenting on native bees. I think it's going to be a really, really fun, exciting presentation. Hope to see you all there.
And hope to see some of you at the Washington State Beekeepers Conference too.
And final reminder, if you have not already, if you have any interest whatsoever in running for the Board of Trustees or as an officer, please email me or any of the other trustees or officers to let us know. We'd love to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Okay.